Hello and welcome to Living as Is. And I'm Shah, autistic, neurodivergent, intuitive reader, self aware, just a human. As at the end of the day, all labels. As a child, there were many times when I felt those around me were somehow not quite right. Actually, I might need to rephrase that. It was more that I never felt as if I was talking the same language as everyone else. Also, not understanding people all the time. Oh, what? I just felt like I was an alien to everybody else. The one thing I was never aware of as a child, I'm on the autistic spectrum. Now, many years down the road, finding out I was, well, it explained so much to me. During the process of my pre-diagnosis, I was interviewed 3 times, and I was asked the same question 3 times. So, even though I know this question, and I remember my response, my answer never shifts. It's as if there's an ingrained feeling which says, whilst what you're saying may be the case, this answer will always remain the same, as this is my understanding. What's this question I'm building into infamy, you may ask? What is the difference between humour and sarcasm? My answer? None. I'm questioned over that answer. I'm given a reason as to why there's a difference. And I accept that as a truth. I accept what they say as a truth. Why would the people looking into my autism have any reason to lie or lead me astray? It's a harmless question after all. So, why would such a harmless question be asked in the first place? Because the autistic mind understands things differently. It's kind of where the word neurodivergent comes from. The neurons are diverting. Sorry. I'm very much aware as a child that growing up, going through my spiritual development, going through my understanding of myself and what made me tick, I came to understand that as a child growing up, a person will watch, monitor, and copy their peer group. They'll copy their family and on. This is how non-autistics will really develop in life. And this is how non-autistics kind of form that same understanding. It's the way the game of life is learnt. But it's also the way people are programmed to act and be like everyone else around them. In my early 20s, a teacher in college misdiagnosed me. They said they were trained in child psychology. and went on to explain what they believed was going on with myself. This later turned out to be kind of right, but still a misdiagnosis. Recently, a friend sent a link that referenced in the 1800s, the schooling system was one of conformism. And to this day, a lot connected to this system is still used. So they're creating children to act, think, and behave in certain ways. Then we have the autistic spectrum disorder. And people like myself just don't register life in the same way. It's no wonder we don't play the game in the same way. When studying Buddhism, I was taught it could take eons of karma clearing to be able to reach awakening. Yet, of all the teachers I came across teaching Buddhism, not one teacher ever seemed to consider the thought, we may have already been alive in one form or another for eons, which you kind of think would give us an opportunity for a bit of karma cleansing. Now, why do teachers teach this way? They're trained to talk the same talk, which is something I found with religious text. You read from the textbook to talk the same language. It's like you go to a Christian school and you'd expect that they would be teaching from the Bible, not the scripture of Buddha. It's the same going to a Buddhist school and wanting to learn Buddhism. You'd expect they would be coming from the same scripture. That just seems normal. But there is also the understanding of everything being taught the same in the same similar style. Anyway, stepping back from these differences a little, it is very possible for someone to consider differences, not just in race, color, etc., but differences in ways of thinking. An autistic mind is already running through differences due to not being able to take on board what is brought to them in the way it's brought to them. So they develop what I'm labeling as their way. In my search to understand my diagnosis, in my search to understand me, in my search to have my questions answered in life, I found some material in a couple of books I've been reading of late. They're written by a highly respected and qualified psychologist. Their field of study, autism. Now, in these books, it's highlighted how an autistic person is able to develop a method to sink within themselves and step back from the world of dysphoria they find themselves currently trapped within. In developing this system of stepping back, stepping within, they take themselves to a quiet place, a place where all the senses shut down. Some even reporting everything fades away and they enter into nothing. A psychologist called this the not self, a place of nothingness, and was similar to the state monks would enter in meditation. I have to admit, when I came across the system they were using, I did match it to something that I've been experiencing for many years. And using the word similar, it made, at first, I thought similar, it's the same. Okay, I'll explain a bit later. It's not exactly the same, and I'll explain why. But the state I was relating it to is called Samadhi. It's a very deep state of meditation where everything falls away. All senses stop. Well, obviously they don't stop. You're still breathing. You're still alive. Your heart's still beating. But it's all those senses which are collecting data, which are collecting information. They all shut down. So there's nothing consciously being recorded. And you go into this space of nothingness. I can sit in this space for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm not actually controlling the time, although sometimes I will set an alarm. But it is a wonderful place to come out of. Absolutely fantastic. A lot of spiritual teachers, they've locked their students into believing without training, they cannot attain something. To a certain extent, I'll accept that. I'll accept training can help. Just, I'm not a fan of the fixed system and it must be done this way. I've got a book. Let me just check, sorry. What are we? It's 25 doors to meditation, a handbook for entering Samadhi. So there's 25 meditations within the book, and anyone focused over time could help you enter Samadhi. That to me is a flexible system. But what I'm believing is going on in terms of the autistics is that they're reaching a state that contains true depth within without any training. For years, the main subject of study, myself, what made me tick, think the way I do, act the way I do, what made me, me. In this searching, I became self-aware, as well as opening doors to awakening. I, a neurodivergent, became self-aware and is awakening. However, it's my feeling a certain focus is required to bring direction. I mentioned this just a moment ago. When I studied different techniques for meditation, every technique will provide a direction for focus, but it's related to the technique you're learning. Which means, while an autistic has the ability to step back in mental focus and close off all senses, thereby stepping into not self. They are not using this technique for self-growth. They're just wanting to step back from the world, step back from their anxiety, from their stress, from the pressure they feel. And for this, it works beautifully. And this is why I believe that psychologist a moment ago said similar. Because everything is there for something quite unique. And this is the uniqueness, because I feel this is brilliant, fantastic. I think this is just amazing. For an autistic to be able to do this, to sink into nothingness. Because with a slight change to the thought process while closing down, they can take their focus to self and towards spiritual development should they wish it. That is just amazing. Just amazing. Now, without any insult to a teacher, and I may look at this from two different ways, but without any insult to a teacher, there isn't a single teacher I've come across that has any understanding, let alone awareness of autistic mind. Which means every teacher I've seen online, every article, video, and website for any teacher is only based around a teaching style I see as non-autistic. But I will relate this to the fact that everyone's teaching from the same page, which I'll probably go over this in a moment. But everyone's teaching from the same page. And technically, that's for non-autistics. Now, the thing is, there are autistic people that were diagnosed late in life. And they're using techniques, they say, of a spiritual development and awakening. However, they're teaching from the standpoint of the system they learnt through life before they were diagnosed. So what I'm perceiving is that this is their preferred teaching, as it's the one that brought them to awakening. You may find very few autistics within a spiritual teaching group, because the system of teaching has always been based around one system of teaching, and that's the system for neurotypicals, for non-autistics. What may be found is this system isn't necessarily going to work for autistics. But let me add, in respect to seeing every autistic as an individual, I'll never be saying there are no autistics within a spiritual group. My studying of Advaita Vedanta, which is non-duality, started in about 2008. I found the teachings were similar to Buddhism, which I'd previously studied, so that helped a great deal. By the time I came to the teacher I took on as a mentor and assisted, it would have been about 4 to 5 years of self-study. It's my feeling this time of study really helped opening self-awareness. Yet, there are times when I find, no matter where I currently may be in relation to self-awareness and awakening, it just doesn't touch any feeling, sensing, or knowing in relation to autism. There's nothing I've experienced in terms of the combination of self-awareness, awakening, and being autistic that has been passed on from a single teacher to date. Yet you can't expect it to happen when, from what I've seen, most teachers are just non-autistic, teaching from a system meant for non-autistics. The way around this may be for a autistic person to hold private one-to-one sessions with a teacher, or they just barrage the teacher with questions. Only a lot of teachers don't like the barrage of questions, so they're likely to tell you to keep quiet or not allow you to attend. Now, you could find someone like myself, a self-aware, awakening autistic. That might help. It's taken a lot of research into autism for myself to understand the different levels of mind put forward by psychologists. And I did this because within the feeling and seeing of rasa, essence of emotion, there is still at present no seeing to the autistic triggers I'm experiencing. So it's interesting that I can have this moment of emotion and I can feel the emotion going on. And it's like an external emotion to me because internally I have this immense peace, and that's the rasa, this immense peace. And with having this immense peace, I also have this opportunity to quieten what's going down on the outside. But with the autistic trigger, that's not happened yet. So I hold a feeling in deepening within, deepening into self-awareness and awakening. There will be a time when even the autistic triggers are seen. Now, I can't say this would be the same as rasa. It really is going to be a time of wait and see. The current awareness I have in relation to answering my questions in life has come from the research I've done to understand my autistic mind, which has further deepened understanding into the non-autistic mind. Now, you could say a non-autistic mind could be thinking linear, thereby able to keep a focus on conversation, beginning, middle, and end. Whereas an autistic mind with visual thinking, it could depend on the state the person is in, even the time of day. For instance, thoughts and images could be clearer when the person is drifting off to sleep. Now, I like this one because it reminds me that one of the best times for me is waking up. I can wake up and have a crystal clear thought, and I start talking to myself about this thought, or I'll write it down or I'll record it. But the thought is so clear and I can answer questions related to this thought really well. And it's always in the morning when I wake up. People with autism also think with their subconscious. They can see the decision-making process that is not perceived by non-autistics. And many autistics have their own system to interpret their surroundings. So this research has now answered, after so many years, it's answered the questions I've been asking through my life. As an autistic, I created my own system to interpret the people around myself and my surroundings, which also included sensing, feeling, and reading the people around me. This is where it led me on to the psychic fields I've been working in to date. Now, we go back to the teacher in college. I said he was kind of correct, but they also misdiagnosed. At first, they comment thinking I was autistic, which they dismissed. They said, no, that's not the case. Then adding, I believe you crossed a logic barrier. And they proceeded to inform me how schools changed the curriculum round about 10, 11 years old to push a child over a logic barrier. Doing it by this system would ensure everyone held the same logic thinking. I asked if he'd succeeded to change my logic thinking, and it was a no. Apparently, it's fixed and would stay this way. Which, to be honest, is quite funny, because as an autistic, yes, my logic is kind of fixed. This teacher was wrong in his diagnosis towards me not being an autistic, as I am. He was kind of right with the logic thinking, because I created my own logic thinking process as I grew up. And this was through my development and self-learning as an autistic. So here I am. End of a journey. One where I questioned my knowing, sanity, and where did all this come from? To find it came from the mind of an autistic. Could say a neurodivergent that developed his own process of understanding the world. Thank you, Olga, for theory of mind to autism, to stepping into the understanding of my mind, the self-aware, awakening autistic. Here we are again, at the end of a video. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening. Come on. Click like and subscribe. Click to be notified. Click to be notified of the next video. Come on. Join in. Help the channel to grow. Please do. I would love you to do that. Thank you so much. Thank you again. Blessings to you all.